We on? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Harnessing AI Business Growth and Innovation. I'm Irwin Dayan from Medea Capital. We finance and advise consumer goods companies. I'll be hosting this incredible technology panel today. So, I believe that we're going to introduce the panel. First on deck is Norman Dwek, who's CIO of RCS Professional Services. He'll give you a little snapshot of who he is.
Hey, everybody. All right. Thanks, everyone. How's it going?
It's going dynamite. It's great.
All right. I think we got a good one today.
We got a good one. We got a lot of people on, and robots are going to be on, and avatars are going to be on. It's going to be a blast.
Nice. Let's see. I am from RCS Professional Services. We are an IT MSP here in New York and Atlanta. We have clients West Coast, down in Florida, all kinds of different places. One thing I wanted to go over with you guys is some housekeeping. You guys can be on this show. So you will see that at some point we're going to post, Alex is going to post a link in the chat. And you can click on that link and she will bring you onto the show. If you have any questions or any comments to make, that's great. Other than that, post stuff in that chat because we're watching that chat as it's going by and there'll be other people you can, share your thoughts and have a whole conversation there. And without further ado, here is Jeffrey Tebele.
Hey. Thank you. I'm Jeffrey Tebele with RCS Professional Services. Like Norman said, we're an IT managed service provider, helping businesses leverage IT in their businesses to make them more efficient, more effective, more profitable. So we're excited to bring this to you. We have a great panel today, some really smart folks over here. We're going to go over AI. It's all over the newspapers, the news, everything and anything. We're excited to start introducing it to our clients. We'll be talking about that. So one thing Norman didn't mention about the housekeeping is if you do click on the link to join, please make sure to, what is it, Norman? Just pause the LinkedIn or turn off the volume?
You turn off the volume for sure. Oh, no. I think you kind of need to get off the LinkedIn because it will echo. It'll still be picking up your microphone.
So if you do click on, just shut down that LinkedIn page or pause it or whatever it is. But yeah, so we're excited to have everyone. And let's bring on our next panelists and they can introduce themselves.
Hey, everybody. My name is Duncan Littlefield. I am the founder of Littlefield. And so my little bit of a backstory is I was once a professional golfer, turned storyteller, started a video production company about 6 years ago, sold it into an agency, and now helping some companies grow along the way. So I'm excited to talk all things AI and marketing and content and life and everything in the middle. And, still haven't found a cup of coffee or a conversation I haven't turned down. So excited to be here.
Nice.
Okay. Tatyana, you're on.
Hi, happy to join this panel. My name is Tatyana Mamut. I'm calling in from San Francisco. I've been a tech leader and chief product officer at little companies like Amazon Web Services, Salesforce, Nextdoor, and more recently Pendo. I've been leading technology innovation here in Silicon Valley for over 20 years. And I now advise many AI startups and speak and teach leadership teams around the world on what this AI revolution means to their business and how they can be confident leaders as we go through all of these transitions and transformations to our business models, our technologies, and our workforce. So that's what I do now.
Welcome.
Okay, we have Dylan. Hi, Dylan.
It's wonderful to be here together. Thanks so much for having me, team. My name is Dylan Gambardella. I'm the CEO and co-founder of NextGen HQ, where we build tools to help folks go from learner to earner, whatever that means. You could be a student graduating. You could be looking to increase that salary, find the next job. We think a lot about how we can save you time, save you energy in everything to do with your career. So if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for ways to leverage AI to save you time, come our way, we'll help you out. But super excited to dive into all the above together here today.
Nice.
Great. Okay. So now that everybody give a little snapshot of who they are, um, let's dig right into it. So, Tatyana, you got the first one. Everybody's talking about AI like it was developed a week ago. So obviously, everybody here knows that it's been around for a long time, especially you, Tatyana. So maybe you could talk about the fact that was it really developed yesterday or was it 20 years ago? And you could tell us where we were and where we are now.
Yeah. Well, historically, AI, a lot of that research started in the 1940s and 1960s, but it actually had commercial applications almost a decade ago in a lot of our products. And we called it ML, or machine learning. And what that was, it was predictive AI. So meaning what that meant was if you were in a social media app like Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or Nextdoor, we had algorithms that was the machines actually trying to predict what is the next piece of content to serve you. And that was artificial intelligence, right? It wasn't people writing the rules to say this is the next thing, to serve, to you in the feed. It was actually the machines learning and running algorithms to figure out what piece of content to serve to you. That was predictive AI. What shifted now is that we have generative AI. So not only can the machine actually do the prediction in terms of what piece of human generated content to serve to you, it can actually generate that piece of content as well. And that is actually the big shift, is that it's gone from just being predictive to be predictive and generative. The other shift that's happened with these large language models is that it's gone from domain specific AI. So again, the feed ranking algorithm only knew about feed ranking, right? That is the only thing that particular algorithm was looking at. But because now these large language models have been fed pretty much all the data on the internet, which contains a lot of human knowledge, they have a lot of general and generalizable data as well. So you can do really interesting things like, ask, an AI, one of these LLM models like a ChatGPT or a Bard to write, a Shakespearean sonnet about something random, and it'll sound amazing, right? Because it knows these two very different domains, right? Shakespearean poetry and, whatever, SaaS application that you want, and they can munge it together. So those are the two big shifts that have happened recently, from predictive and generative, and from domain specific to more general. And that's why 2023 is such a big change in the landscape for AI.
Right. Great. It took us through the journey of AI. So next, so now we talked about that, I'm going to shift gears to Jeff and Norman to tell us the IT side of things, whether it's Copilot, ChatGPT, how they apply it to their daily business, and what they offer and how they see it in the business world. So I don't know, Norman, Jeff, you want to take a both? How you want to handle it?
Norman, you want to go first, or should I?
Sure, no problem. Okay, so this is really, AI is everywhere suddenly. It's amazing. Microsoft is in it, Google's in it. They both want to integrate AI into their products. In terms of Google, they've got their Bard product that they're racing to put into everything, into their word processor, into their spreadsheet. Same thing going on Microsoft's side. They've got their Copilot product, and it's really going to change the way you do business on a daily basis, because it'll be able to bubble up emails that in the morning you come in after a weekend, you have 600 emails. It's going to bubble up the emails. You can say, hey, I need you to summarize those emails. It'll do that. I need you to reply to that email. It'll do that. Word, it can generate. You can give it a prompt, and it can generate whole paragraphs for you. PowerPoint, it can generate whole slides and a whole slideshow. Excel, you can say, show me that in a chart, and it will show you that data in a chart on your spreadsheet. Like the things it can do are really incredible. Jeff, you wanted to
Yeah,
That's
I'm so super excited and stoked. It's going to be transformative. And the cool part about it, for those of you who have tried stuff like ChatGPT, etc., that's scavenging the internet for all sorts of stuff, and then making it available to you and using that tool, right? But this is your stuff. This is your data. It's stuff sitting in your Outlook, sitting in your OneDrive, sitting in your SharePoint, sitting in your Google Drive. So it's picking up on all those conversations, all those files, and it gets to know you, right? Because it has all your information. So it's not only that generic stuff outside in the outside world, it's in the inside world. So I just think it's going to be transformative for our clients. We can't wait to start showcasing it, implementing it, and not only Microsoft and Google, right? All the tools that businesses use, be it Adobe, HubSpot, Salesforce, whatever it is, they're all looking to productize and add value. And it's going to be transformative. I just really can't wait for us to have this offering for our clients, so we could help them be more efficient, more profitable, do more with less energy, and focus on bigger and better things. So I can't wait personally.
Right.
Yeah,
So
if you guys want to try this right now, and you have a Microsoft tenant, go get the Edge browser. It's the Bing Chat is there already. It's called Bing Chat Enterprise. The enterprise part of it is the privacy part of it, as in you can throw information into it. It's not going to add that to, say, ChatGPT's model that it's using for its data set. It's going to keep your information private and use ChatGPT to do whatever it is you're trying to do. So you can try this right now, and it's great.
Yeah, so we can't wait.
Right. So I just have a quick question. So I'm talking to like an all-star pro, let's say pro sports players. So now I'm talking to an all-star tech team. Is it when all these things that are out there, is it a walkthrough? Will you have to be trained? Could I just put like a baby boomer, touch a button, and I'm going to be a superstar with AI?
I mean, I'll just take a stab at it, but
I'll
like
take any criticism from you, Jeff.
the way that they're positioning it, at least the smarter people than me, is you're basically putting the power of programmers' skill sets in the hand of every single human being, right? Like they're doing writing code, tens, hundreds, millions of dollars, and here it is, you're using your plain English language to generate stuff, right? So I think it's really designed to be super easy for anybody personally.
Right.
I don't know what other people's thoughts are.
Right. So I want to ask Tatyana, because she talked about the now. So is it now, like, in other words, sometimes with technology, you start and then 5 years later, my grandkid could do it, which my grandkid could beat me anyway at technology.
So right now, it is very easy to use, and it will give you, in some ways, astonishing results. However, if you look more closely, those astonishing results are often factually incorrect and not exactly what you wanted. So there are two things that people really need to understand. The first is that the kind of off-the-shelf LLM models hallucinate a lot because they're based on statistical reasoning about trying to predict the next token, which some people say it's the next word, but and within a framework of what you asked. So they're often wrong. There are ways of getting around that with fine tuning, and we'll talk about that later. Right. But the first thing is you have to be very careful about checking that the results are correct. The second thing is that the way that when you look at it and you're like, well, this sounds really astonishing, right? The result was pretty astonishing, but it's not exactly what I wanted. And that's where prompt engineering comes in. And we've probably been hearing it's not really engineering. It's really just knowing how to ask the question, because remember, you're just asking a natural language question. But the system knows things like tone, it knows things like context, and and if you don't tell it from what perspective you want it to answer, these things are common sense to us, but it's not common sense to the machine. And so you have to go in and understand how to write the prompt correctly with what's the tone, what's the content, what's the point of view that you want it to answer with. And then, is there any other context that you need to provide in order to get the type of answer that you want? So those are the things to consider. So yes, it's easy to use right now, but it's not necessarily going to give you what you really want or need unless you know those things.
Right. So just give me the final on, you mentioned before, is there such a thing as a filter? Because now I get data and I utilize it and it backfires because it's not really real or whatever.
Yeah. So two things. So there's the legal thing and then there's the technical thing. So the legal aspect, and I just learned this a few days ago, is that the reason why all these things are co-pilots right now is because legally the filter is the human operator always. So it's kind of like having autopilot in your car. If the car gets into an accident, you are still liable, even if you had it on autopilot. It's the same thing with these tools.
Right.
So the actual legal filter is you. You cannot, you are actually legally responsible for making sure that you have fact checked everything and made the decision to, that whatever the LLM has produced is correct. So
you can't sue the robot.
Can't sue the robot, can't sue Tesla, right? You're responsible as the operator. So that's the legal aspect. On the technical aspect, there is this thing called fine tuning. And some of the data that I've seen on companies like Snorkel AI and others who help companies with fine tuning. Fine tuning means that you take a large language model and you take that basic, that basic data, structure, and that's a lot of data that they've trained it on. And then you add your own data to fine tune the answers. And what that means is that if you have domain specific knowledge, the way that the system will answer you will be based on the fine tuning from that domain specific knowledge. Right. And that can bring hallucinations down by, I've seen, up to 90%. Wow. If the fine tuning is done well. So there are ways of doing that technically. And there are more and more companies helping provide the services to be able to do that without a huge engineering team of your own.
Right. Thank you. Now, I just wanted to mention there was a case recently where an attorney used it and went into the court, and I'm sure you're all aware of it or you read about it. And the judge threw it out because it was like, this is information that you got from, out of space, and half of it is junk. So, and threw the lawyer out, right out of the courthouse. It's interesting. All right. Thanks for that. So now we're going to go over to Duncan, and we're going to talk about incorporating it into marketing and, basically media in the media world. So Duncan, you're on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that right now everybody's, uses the word content is king. And, as you run startups or companies, the idea of building content to scale and to maximize your content is really important, because back 5, 10, 20 years ago, when you were thinking about, creating a podcast or, reality is like an audiobook back 20 years ago. But the truth is it took a lot of manpower, and it took a lot of people to come together and cut this and do that and create this. Now with AI and what it's doing with the technology side, it's become very easy. So, you think about one of the leaders in the space is Adobe. Adobe has been known for Photoshop and Lightroom and Premiere and so many other tools, but how they're creating AI or promoting AI or building upon AI is really fascinating. So, as a great example was, Adobe's Photoshop. There used to be ways you could take pieces of images out. I mean, kind of my old reference is that if you're a Seinfeld fan, there's an old episode where George gets into a little bit of trouble because he's in the back of somebody's photo or one of his boss's photos, and he tries to airbrush himself out. Unfortunately, airbrushes his boss out, and then he tries to go back and airbrush his boss back in, and it's a whole thing. And, back in 1990 and 2000, it looks terrible. Now, with what Adobe's doing is you could literally just click on the person and have them disappear and have the background show up as is, because what Adobe's doing is it's pulling all the assets or all the data in to then cover and make it look like it was never there. So it's really cool what they're doing. But, a couple other things that really are, kind of pushing the creative side of things is the podcast. Adobe's done something incredible with Adobe Podcast, where you can go record a podcast. And even a year ago, my company was working on programs to like make podcasting way more efficient, to then say, all right, you go give us an hour worth of podcast and we're going to be able to give you 20, 30 clips. But that took so much manpower. Now Adobe does it for you.
Wow.
There's another company out there. It's called Opus Clip, and Opus Clip does the same thing where you upload your podcast that you pre-record it. It then at that point cuts it up. It does all the editing for you, as well as it cuts specific clips out. And through AI and arguably like the emotional intelligence that it has, it waits for those moments where it gets really exciting in a podcast, and it clips those moments. So then at that point, it makes it to vertical for your stories and all those different elements. It's quite remarkable to actually watch the process happen. And another one, Adobe Firefly and Moonlander. Right now, what we saw very early on with these pieces of technology, where it was, hey, let me go create an image of Times Square Pixar themed, or Keanu Reeves set in 1960 selling a hat on the side of the road, and it would create it. But now what it's doing is, if you actually take it and think about it being implemented into someone's job or someone's role, it's quite fascinating. If you think about a product design, you can go to Moonlander, Adobe Firefly, and go, okay, hey, I want to design this prompt to build a backpack, to build an iPhone case, whatever it is. You can lay out every element, every detail you want into it, and you literally can just upvote and recreate over and over and over again. So now, instead of spending hours with pencils and drawings and all these different things, you can just write this big prompt, and then at that point have it create Adobe or render after render after render after render, until you can almost pick up certain elements. I like this, I like that, I like this, I like that, while then open sourcing the concept. So if you want to get a feedback from the world while doing this, it's available. So it's just some of those like really cool things where you think about maximizing content, but also putting like really strong AI into your role. It's not taking away jobs. It's actually adding creative influence into it. And, the last one that I'll kind of speak to today is a tool. It's probably my favorite. So as a dyslexic human being, reading contracts is like the worst thing in the world for me. Like, I can't stand it. But there's this program now called DocuAsk. And so what it is if you think about building a 20-page document of all legal jargon and this and this and this, it's like, it's just painful to go through. But so what happens is you upload the document and you can ask it questions. Hey, what does it say about this? What does it say about that? How would this happen if this, this, and this? It really lays out all of these scenarios where you're kind of just like asking, I don't want to say a lawyer, but you're asking a third party who knows the document really well, and it's giving you the information that you're asking for. So there's so many different tools now to like maximize content, pick up efficiency in this world. But those are just some of those like few ones that I just like we're using all the time now because of how fast we can become.
That's incredible. Thanks for that insight. So a question I have is, does it make, let's say, email marketing and tools I used over the last 5 years like obsolete, or does this like blow that out of the water, or this piggybacks it? How do all these things you mentioned like make it happen faster, more efficient, more what do you call it? Let's say monetizing. Will these new tools help that?
I think everything's going to help everything. And I know that's like a terrible answer of like sitting right in the fence. So like, apologize for not sitting on one side of it.
Right.
But the truth of it is, it's a matter of how you use it. If you think about ChatGPT and like how it connected to like HubSpot to like write an email, the idea of like taking the email and then putting it into this and putting it into that, to then all of a sudden being like, I probably could have just written that email.
Right.
And so it's a matter of using the tools to your benefit and how to use those tools and how to use those specific tools to your benefit. So you mentioned like email marketing. Yes, absolutely. Like right now, HubSpot, SalesReach, all of these teams are looking at mass quantity. Right. But now from my side of things, I can also make my email better. So if I was to sit back here and think about making an email, I mean, again, dyslexic over here. I'm a
Right.
video guy. So
Right.
I would much rather record a video. Now I can record a video to 100 people by recording it only a few times,
Right.
because now it's picking up my voice and my tone and all these things compared to a year ago.
Mhm.
You know, you ask a great friend of mine, I recorded 300 videos once just for Christmas and for holiday, just to say thank you for our customers. Now I record that video 5 times because
Wow.
of what these tools are doing. So yes, you can become so much more efficient, but you have to know how to use it and what the outcome you want to
Right.
be, to know how to use it to then be efficient. Because if not, you're just going to spin your wheels and going, oh, I'm using this, but
Right.
everyone's going to know that you're not, you're going to use AI and it's not genuine.
Right.
You want to mask that ability to be genuine. Like you want to get an email from Duncan, not from Duncan and ChatGPT.
Right. So the thing
So
is, okay.
can I add something? I think that the challenge here is not just to imagine how we can do the things that we're currently doing faster and more efficiently, but to actually imagine what new things that this makes possible. So I'm advising an AI startup right now. It's called Product Pilot. It's pretty awesome. And what it does is, where you would usually have like an SDR writing emails to a client, especially if you have, you know, something that's online and you have people kind of coming to your website and there's a way to like, hey, click here and put in your email to learn more. And then an SDR gets that and then they start an email conversation. Not now, there's a new tool with the power of generative AI to say, you don't even have to do that, right? You just click, it's essentially a chatbot, but it actually acts more like a live SDR, because what you can do is just put in goals like, hey, Product Pilot, I want you to get this person's email. I want you to schedule an appointment with this person for a demo. And I want you to figure out what their top 3 pain points are. And the actual, it sounds like a real conversation with a real person who's actually trying to accomplish those 3 things. It hooks into your calendar, so it can actually find, right? It's also like, it can actually find availability for yourself and the person and the customer. And it's hooked into Salesforce so that it can generate a lead. So it's actually doing all of these things, right? It's not just generating the emails for the SDR faster, it's actually doing truly intelligent things and taking out that entire step of email altogether. So I think for us, we need to like think about not only how can generative AI make, you know, help us do the current things that we're doing faster and more efficiently, but also, do we even need to do these things at all? Like, why are we sending people emails? Don't we all get an annoying number of emails?
Right.
Why are we sending more emails?
Right.
Maybe that's nonsense,
Right.
right? Maybe we should be thinking about something completely different.
Right.
I love that. If I can, Irwin, Tatyana, you hit the nail on the head. We should not be thinking of how we can leverage AI to just replace some of the tasks that humans are doing. I think that's V1, and for sure there's realm of importance there. The major opportunity, though, is rethinking entire processes. Should this exist? Should this be done, period? If so, great, we'll automate a lot of it. But if not, how can we reinvent the approach to take a technology first, right? Rethink from the zero with principle, even first principles, I'll argue. And to be honest, I think a lot of the innovations that we're seeing thus far, very early, of course, in the AI revolution, shall we say, have been thinking about just taking the human out of the loop versus rethinking the entire process with technology.
Right. So that's a great point, and I think that really our branding of today's event, harnessing AI for innovation, rather than you saying just upgrading things that we used to do. I think that's a key point. Okay, so now we'll go to Dylan, and the question is, how do you incorporate it into your daily life? Now, when you walk in, let's say 20 years ago, you picked up a phone, and then you picked up a cell phone, and then you went online, then you got an email, then you got a chat, then soon you're gonna have a robot in your office when you walk in. So, we're past the Jetsons already. Dylan, what do we do in the morning? We just walk into our office or our home office, or working remote on an island somewhere. What do we do? Good morning, Mr. Robot. What do we do?
on this island of Manhattan here in New York City, it's really important, Irwin, that we timestamp this. So October 18th, 2023, because if you have this interview, we run this panel back in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, I bet you the answer is going to change.
Wow.
Just look at some of the wearable technologies that are happening in real time that exist right now. But the piece that I am really inspired by, that I've seen firsthand from especially folks maybe my age, I'm Gen Z, right? Whatever you want to say about my generation, we grew up with technology. So I think the on-ramp is simply just lower. It's a lower barrier to entry. I have seen my fellow team members, my friends, my peers integrate AI into their daily workflows. I think for me, the easiest example is having something like ChatGPT always up on a monitor. I have that ready to go. I'm using it as the thought partner to help me with my writing, to be a creative brainstormer, to be a reviewer and editor, even to help me with code and developing our technologies. That's a constant. So it's not a every other day, once a week. I'm using that in every workflow. We think about that a lot from the product innovation side. Tatyana and others mentioned the term of co-pilots, right? I think co-pilots are a fantastic tool that will only continue to be leveraged in different workflows. I think a lot about, for our product, of course, how you can have a co-pilot for your recruiting, your career journey. What would it look like if you had the world's best recruiter sitting on your shoulder? How would they help you? That's the question we want to answer. But that's just one realm. What would it look like if you're a 10th grade student in math class and you had Albert Einstein on your shoulder as your co-pilot? What would Albert do to help you learn? These are the questions that companies are answering, right? That's not the particular problem we're solving, but I have no doubt that there are solutions already in the market, let alone ones that will come, to think about the easy ways to capture data, transform that data in a way that allows for more readily accessible learnings, takeaways across the board. And I think it's really exciting, quite frankly. There is a lot to be done in terms of how we integrate, where we choose to let AI enter. I think the classroom is a really complicated example where you've heard probably every argument from no AI to embrace it fully. The solution, like everything, is probably somewhere in the middle. I'm not the expert to tell you what that looks like, but all I will say is that, Irwin, it's really encouraging. I'll end by pointing out that while I am saying that I see this as a vastly adopted technology, I do live in a bit of a bubble, right? If you zoom out, you think about the US as a whole, and then you zoom out even further, you think about the world, it is a very small percentage of workers, whether knowledge workers, service industries, it differs. And there's some great research that maybe we can put in the comments after this for folks who are interested. But I have to remind myself constantly, not everybody is on ChatGPT, let alone as much as I am. Not everybody has used AI. So it's still very, very early when you think about the broader consumer adoption.
Right. So my question from my own personal thing is like this. Is it, I always like to believe like any new tool or any new, a team player with you, I always like to think is 1 + 1 = 10. In other words, so is it a collaborative thing with AI, or you're just cherry picking AI and delivering it? In other words, is someone's brain helping it? I'll give you a classic example. Like there's a whole thing now about cursive writing. So when I was a little kid 100 years ago, we used to write with a pad and a pen.
Likewise.
And they say, and it's a true thing, that you're thinking differently when you're writing. Rather than typing, it's not the same thing. So the bottom line is like this. If I'm using, because I'm like I'm insane with data, especially numbers. If I'm using it, I want it to help me. I want to use my brain plus that to supersede anything I could come up with. Or it's just ask the question, take the data, and I'm a delivery boy.
I'm not a futurist, and I do not profess to have the perfect understanding, Irwin.
But what
I would say, my gut tells me, my experience shows me, in the example you mentioned, it's not necessarily that writing cursive is this incredible skill that we need for future outcomes. But you flagged it perfectly. It's the logic behind thinking differently, behind challenging our approach.
Right.
I would argue that there are ways that same end goal can be accomplished using technology, using things like AI.
Right.
And so I think about this a lot. Right now, Bill Gates, the Gates Foundation, is a tremendous advocate of the importance of math in early childhood development. Those who are excelling at math, the correlation with life outcomes is extremely close, right? If you're good at math as a young student, you're going to have a better life outcome and earning power, potential, et cetera. That's been proven. That's been
I
proven.
love that. I'm a fan of that. Yeah. It's
Hey,
funny.
yes, and like you're a numbers guy.
There was a thing also that, because math was my thing my whole life. Everything else I deep sixth, but math and science was my thing. And that's what really, took me on my journey in the business world. But they said that your favorite teacher in school becomes your skill set. And throughout my career, my math teachers were always like, I was the biggest fan of my math teachers. So I guess it has a play there. What Gates is saying, it's really true, because that's the whole thing. If you can't use your brain and use your calculator or a screen or any other kind of instrument, the person's not thinking. So my whole issue with all these technology things, and maybe Tatyana, because you're like in that world, day and night, is that do we lose our ability to think with all these tools?
Well, if I may, just to finish that off, I think you just answered where I was going with that. It's not necessarily, in my opinion, that it's so important to know geometry for your career outcomes. That's not the reason that math skills are correlated with career outcomes, but it's the critical thinking that math teaches us that empowers us to be successful later in life. And that's just one of the many reasons that fall under learning math, right? Again, my ability to do calculus, I don't think has helped me once as an entrepreneur professional, but my problem-solving abilities continue to be my number one skill set.
Because
and that's where I'm excited about AI, right? And math is one of just the earlier ways that we can start to flex those muscles, shall we say, when it comes to problem-solving, resiliency, logic. And I do think AI can be a powerful tool to accelerate that as well. But Tatyana, I know you want to jump in, so take it over.
Yeah. Again, I'm also not a futurist, and I'm not where I actually am. But so I've been thinking about this a lot. I don't know exactly how it's going to go. However, I do believe that very soon AI will be better at many of the things that we consider intelligence than humans are. And that will force us to really re-examine what are the particular unique skills of human beings. And I'll give you one example. We brought up math. Certainly, I think, computers are very good at computing. And once they can do that more autonomously, it's highly likely that things like chess and math, is not going to be the particular skill set of human beings. However, one of the things that we need to examine and understand is that we do have many other things that we as humans can do that currently machines cannot. So this past summer, I have two kids. I live in San Francisco, and I was originally going to sign them up for a summer camp doing computer coding. And then ChatGPT came out, and I looked at it, and I was like, well, forget that, and English is the best programming language in the world in the future. So they don't need to do that. And so what I signed them up for was sailing class for the summer and speech and debate, because the ability to be compelling as a human in front of other humans is, I think, something that right now, if you hear a robot talk about something and it's a robot, right, there's a certain not excitement about that message, right? You might think the message is smart, but there's something about a human being standing in front of you who's a compelling orator that is really powerful. And that's a particular skill of human beings. The other thing about sailing is just understanding the natural world in these multi-sensory ways, right? Feeling the wind, feeling the waves, really understanding the natural world and the world around us in ways that are not documented on the internet.
Wow.
And so those are the skills that I am trying to get my kids to learn, not the ones
That's incredible.
that are on the internet.
That's incredible. And I'll tell you, it's funny you say that. Jeffrey Tebele, many years ago, I took a rafting trip with 20 guys, and Jeffrey Tebele's brother, Charlie, was with us. And we were in the mountains of Chile and Argentina and Patagonia, sitting on top of rivers and mountains that in my life I never thought God created. You thought so differently, you reacted so differently. It was something that was absolutely mind to see the waters and the rush and the colors of the water, things that I never thought that I would be talking about. And it just totally takes your mind for a cleanse. Incredible. Yeah. That's a great
awesome.
point. It's a great point. Yeah. So the bottom line is you can't be 24/7 in technology. You need that break to the outside world to sort of put it together.
Well, it's not just that, it's that the type of intelligence that we've been optimizing and putting on the internet for the last, for our lives, our professional lives, may not be the intelligence that humans really need to lean into in the future.
Right.
There are other forms of intelligence that we are not developing as human beings, and we will be challenged to develop that.
Right. Okay.
I think we touched on everything, right? Irwin, is there more to it?
Well, I don't know how much more time we have before you want to open it up, but I just have a couple of things from my vantage point here is that, you know, what industries do you think that this will, they talk about always, they love when technology comes. The first thing rather than talking about the productivity and how it'll help the world, the first thing they talk about is elimination of humans, in other words. So, like I was saying early on, how do you think, all these tools still have to be managed by a human in some capacity because they're the one that's delivering it. So, like, how do you see it, the panel, as a productive tool rather than an elimination tool?
Personally, I like you mentioned earlier, every technological advancement has not yielded that sort of result where, we're still using people to work on bigger and better things. When the .com era came out, everyone was afraid retail was going to be dead and wasn't going to exist. And lo and behold, the best players right now are the ones that have retail and e-commerce combined. There's basically
Amazon has stores.
So that's a great point, because that was my next question to the panel. How do you compare AI to the .com days? Like, is this going to be like $1 trillion going to AI and you'll see $990 million written off and whatever?
I think there will be some of that. I think it's got a long way to go, and
Right.
These tools are going to develop, and there's going to be a lot of money thrown at it, and there's going to be failures. And Amazon wasn't as great as it is until 10 years in, and that's when it really hit a critical mass.
The problem is with all of these technology hype cycles is that a lot of the early products are built entirely by engineers in terms of what can be built, not what actually should be built and provides value. So it'll take us a while to figure out and sort of bring in the real understanding of not just what can we build with AI, but what are the real unique things that provide value to people. And that takes slightly longer than, just taking a tool, a technology tool, and applying it. Right. So I think once we get those insights, once we get that learning, that's when the real business value will be started to get created.
Right. And will there be like, I keep joking about the robots, but would it be like you could just talk to a robot and give that robot the project, like I'm giving a team player the project. Okay, hi George, the Jetsons. I forgot Jetson's robot, his name, whatever. But that he had a robot. Or his housekeeper was Rosie the robot, or whatever. But you tell, okay, I want this, and the robot comes back and says, this is what I said, and you could really talk to the robot and get your answer. So that could be an elimination of a person, theoretically, no?
Absolutely. And in fact, if you look at the, Auto GPT and a lot of the agents that are being created, they will be able to do things entirely end to end if you provide the right prompt in terms of what you desire and want. And that will be, you'll just say, like, I want to, for example, the travel example is the easiest, I think, because you can book all of the entire itinerary online. and you can just tell a smart agent, a travel agent, AI agent, to do everything, right? Book the tickets, book the hotels, do all the work, right? Optimize the itinerary, and there you go. It'll just happen.
We'll circle back in a few years.
And it's the same thing. Exactly. It's the same thing about even from customer service, right? Like exactly what Tatyana was mentioning earlier. It's right now we could potentially eliminate 70% of the workforce in customer service with, chatbots. And I know there's a company, I know you mentioned one that you're working with, but there's another one out there. I think it's called Tideo, that does a great job. But the minute it hits a threshold of, a consumer is asking a question that they can't scrape from the internet, their data set or anything like that, they refer them to a human being. So it's like realistically, like they're in that 70% bracket where they can close deals, answer service or answer product questions, return, even like returns where it's like, hey, I want to go do this. And it's like, cool. Like the agent does that until it's a point where it's, hey, I need to do this, this, and this. And it becomes a little more complicated that it needs that human touch. But like they're doing something they're promoting right now. It's about 70% and 30% is human being, where 10, 20 years ago, it was 100% human being.
Right. I don't know if we have any questions, but the last point I had was, I know that when Jeff and Norman do these things, there's always like takeaways. You want to go around the panel? Is there any tips, tools, takeaways that just you would shoot out to people?
For me, for Norman and I don't want to speak on behalf of Norman, the stuff is, it's coming to market now. You could start taking advantage of it. Duncan's touched on a lot of stuff that, he's already using Adobe for. All these tools that you're probably already paying for. Speak to your IT, you go to trade shows, see what everyone's using software as a service these days, see what those vendors are developing, and see if it's something you should take advantage of, because it's happening right here, right now. And, you want to stay ahead of the competition, be more competitive, be more profitable, do greater things for your clients, then, start now, I would say.
Right. And
I think my biggest takeaway is
one thing, building on what Jeff said, one thing I would warn you about, though, is ChatGPT, watch what you're putting into it, because if you put your proprietary data into it, you are essentially putting that data out there into their data set, and that's out in the open now. So just keep in mind, think about where you're putting your data. That's why that Bing Chat Enterprise thing is great, because it keeps your data private. So just be careful.
Okay, great. Are there any questions that were on the screen?
Sorry, Duncan, you were saying something?
Yeah, Duncan was saying something.
Everybody good?
No, I was just saying kind of on like the takeaway side of things, it's like know your strengths and like know your weaknesses, and then, understanding how to use technology to, not make your weaknesses proficient, but like also how to like make your strengths really strong.
Right.
So there's so many tools out there now that you can just, like speed up your process and like kind of rework your process. Back to, Dylan's point about being in school, it's how many teachers told you had to be a C student or a B student in something that you were just terrible at. Like I'm dyslexic. I didn't discover I was dyslexic till I was a senior in high school.
Wow.
Writing an email for me is terrible. Like it takes me, if I respond to a group email like this, it takes me half an hour to write 2 paragraphs. But I can sit back here and record a video, record a voice memo, and it spits an email out in 30 seconds.
Wow.
And it takes me 30 seconds. So use the tools at your disposal that AI is only making more efficient, better. But then like you lean into your strengths, because at that point, you're going to be able to like build and build and build beyond the wildest imagination, because of where AI is taking the creativity of it.
Right. Thanks.
And I would just add one more thing, which is to get out of your comfort zone. So I think it's very easy to believe, AI will never be as empathetic as human beings. And so if I have a company that relies on humans to provide empathy, but now we're seeing that that's not true. So just question everything, get out of your comfort zone, push your boundaries, push the edges of what's possible, because if you don't do it, other people will.
Wow. Okay, great. All right. Are there any questions? Alex, is there any questions out there?
I
before?
didn't see anything. I didn't see
Oh,
anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was incredible. I thank everybody for educating
Thanks.
me. And as soon as I hang up, the robots are waiting to talk to me.
And we will be having more webinars specifically around Copilot Bard as those products are released. Microsoft's releasing in November. Stay tuned on our website or our social. We'll be posting more around that and all sorts of other stuff. Duncan just touched on Strengths Finder. We have great stuff around people and HR. So we've done stuff on behavioral styles and stuff like that. Check out our website for our old events and our upcoming events. We also have in-person networking group in Florida, Sunset Social in Miami. We have the In This Together
That one's
Roundtable,
on
which is
November
the
2nd, I think.
right. We have the
I
In
think our
This
next
Together
one is
Round
November 2nd.
next Wednesday, November 2nd. In This Together Roundtable, which is a virtual networking group that we have every Tuesday morning. You could sign up. Also check that out on our website and our regular events that we have once a month. So everyone, thank you for hanging in there. Thank you for listening to us. I think this was great and more to come.
Great. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Take
See
care.
you soon. Be well.